Oh, what a beautiful day. It's time to get to work today. We're going to be expanding this town here, and we're also going to be building a bridge. Holy sh**, what is that? Hey, Shohi here. Welcome back to another episode of the Minecraft Worldbuilding series. In the last episode, we built this Lumbermill town that's been slowly chipping away at the Sylvan frontier. They've been deforesting the area, and naturally the inhabitants of the forest aren't quite happy about that. So today we're building ourselves some tree monsters, or also known as Treants. Oh, and also a little bridge behind us to kind of connect with the town. Alright, so we've got this little bridge here heading towards the forest line, and we opted for a flat bridge. So it's a pretty basic bridge, very simple. It's nothing too fancy. I kind of wanted to add like a lot of support levels to it, so this is kind of what I came up with. I've never actually really built a bridge, but I think it kind of matches the area. It's like very wooden. So they'd kind of be using all the lumber that they'd be getting from the forest there. But you kind of walk across here with your wagon of logs, and the lumberjacks will be out there cutting down in the forest. And so the Sylvan Frontier is, you know, kind of all this forest area, I'm thinking. So we've got our little fairy city right here. And then they're kind of trimming down the border of the forest. So with any fantasy world, you'll kind of have things like dryads and ents when it comes to deforestation. They're kind of pissed off when you're cutting down their home. So they're protectors of the forest. And since we're kind of in this oak and birch forest right here, we're going to be making an oak ent and a birch ent. But before we build these ents, let's piss them off a little more and gather some wood, because we're going to need quite a lot of wood for these ents. So we started trimming down a little pathway through the forest to kind of maybe make a little forest road coming through the actual forest, and then maybe it'll reach towards this dark oak forest, just so we can kind of get a little route going over there. And so we'll probably have to build a bridge here eventually as well. And then if there was like a little village over here on the stony shore, that'd be kind of cool as well. But as you can see, there's kind of like a bunch of random villages kind of scattered about. And I think, like, lore-wise, they're also kind of timber towns where they kind of log. Since we're in a new area, we actually didn't bring our lore book. So we decided to start a new one. So maybe this one will be kind of the human lore book. Founded by fairy hunters, the logging town of Timberfall was established on the edges of the Sylvan frontier. The tactics of felling trees to expose fairy hives proved to be extra profitable with the insatiable demand for fresh lumber. But while the fairy hunters were cutting down trees to expose fairy hives, they kind of found a side business, a little side hustle, of selling the logs. So this little town of Timberfall ended up becoming a logging town after profits kind of were rising more from the wood than capturing fairies. And so that's why we got this little logging town established here. So this little logging town or sawmill town is kind of supplied by all these lumber camps surrounding the area. And then they'll kind of have this trade route coming through this town right here, down to this town right here. And then probably the actual city will be somewhere near spawn. But the Entios or fairies are naturally extremely pissed off about all the deforestation happening right in their homeland. They speak for the trees after all. So let's get on with building these Ents. Just adding some final touches to the build. That's one armpit. Look at that. He's going through puberty. Let's see, and then one over here. Bam. Would you look at that? An Ent with armpit hair. So we've got the first Ent down. This one is supposed to be a oak Ent. So I'd like to imagine that different Ents of different wood types have different shapes. So for this one, for example, this one's kind of a sturdy oak Ent. So it's a very sturdy looking Ent, I would say. The Ent's got this boulder ready in hand to start chucking it at the town. And so the Ent's got this little shroom thing right there. So I imagine they would throw shroom spores. So I've had this idea before I even started the series, which is partially why the fairies are called the Entias. These Ents are not actually Ents at all, and they're actually just mech-like suits that the elite Entias can use. So for anyone who may be new, the Entias are fairies with insectile-like features, and they have this unique ability to control wood and plants. In episode 6, we talked about the ability barkification, or embarkment, where a wood magic user can encase themselves in a bark-like armor. These tree monsters are just extreme cases of barkification, and can only be used by elite fairy. I imagine that many can hold small forms like dryads, but the behemoth tree monster behind me, those are only capable to be made by the powerful Entias. So in order for them to be more scary and menacing, these fairies came up with the idea of using their wood magic to make themselves much larger and scarier, and since they speak for the trees, they became the trees themselves. But long ago, these tree folk were believed to be sentient creatures that wandered and protected the forests. And over decades, adventurers would fight these tree folk, and it was eventually discovered that the tree monsters were actually just fairies cosplaying as Ents. I imagine each wood type would have different styles of Ent. Maybe some fairies specialize in spruce wood, for example, and have spruce Ent suits. And depending on the wood type, you'd have different physical capabilities. So for this one behind us, we've got an oak Ent. So for oak, I think of sturdy oaks, which is why we have this extra thick boy. This one is pretty thick and, sturdy looking. So it's pretty hard to knock down, pretty hard to take down. And it's powerful enough to, grab boulders and stuff like that. For our second tree monster, we'll be making a birch variant. Birch trees in real life are normally pretty thin trunk-wise. So for the birch Ent, we're gonna kind of make it kind of tall and scrawny looking. And final touches once again here. And here. Perfect. So here's our birch Ent. Since birch trees are pretty slim in real life, we made the birch Ent kind of tall and scrawny. And I wanted to make it look kind of like an old wizard. So we made it kind of hunchbacked and kind of crawling on all fours. But we used diorite walls to make this kind of bark mustache. And then we used this birch leaves to make a tree beard. But I think it's looking pretty good. We also made this little wagon scene here. So the wagon is hauling out some logs from the forest line, and it's being chased by this Ent. And the Ent is kind of shooting this kind of root-like structure towards the wagon. But with both Ents, I try to give them kind of a sense of movement. So this birch Ent, for example, is kind of mid-step here, and they're also raising their arm here to shoot this root-like system towards the wagon. And then for the oak Ent, we also have the oak Ent mid-step right there, and its arms are kind of in a walking motion as well. The one's back there and one's towards the front, and he's carrying a boulder to throw at the town. So I've never actually built organics like this before, or kind of just monsters in general. But honestly, I think they turned out really well for a first time monster builder. The faces are kind of rough because they're trying to make them pretty small. But I think it looks like a face there. But when you look at Ent or Treant fan art, the faces are very slight faces in the bark of the tree. So it's a little difficult to build it in small scale. So we had to kind of make them somewhat big to kind of be able to make an actual face for them. But I've had a lot of fun with this one. So maybe I'll explore the different Ent suits of different wood types in another video. I think it'd be cool to visualize all the different types of Ents, and maybe I can throw them all in their respective biomes. So later on, if we encounter a swamp biome, for example, we can have a swamp monster. Or when we go to the dark oak forest, there's a dark forest Ent. But that's all the Ents builds up for this episode because it's just a birch and oak forest. If there's like a spruce forest or whatever, I'll probably have like a spruce Ent. That's a man-made spruce forest right there because I was in need of a lot of spruce. But you would have kind of spruce Ents in the spruce forest, and you know, acacia Ents in the acacia areas. But I had a lot of fun with this one, so I think I will try to kind of make a few more in the future. But I didn't actually work on this town itself, which was the main goal of this episode originally. And then I kind of had this idea to have the Ents there. So I'm gonna kind of just spice up the town a little bit more, just so they can have a few more things to destroy. Oh, and the villager repopulation project is well underway in there. I kind of just threw them a ton of potatoes, and they're repopulating, because when I was building this town, they kind of all died and wandered around and fell to their death. But I'm not even sure about repopulating the village because they look like they might not make it in the future. But maybe these Ents are just saying hello. Well, well, look who's coming from the forest. You chop some trees, my man, because Ents are not going to be very happy. Ooh, nautilus shell. Acacia, oh. I'm just waiting for, like, mangrove. I really need mangrove. And I think that's one of the few woods. Actually, I think that's like one of the only woods I'm missing, actually. At the moment, I really don't need any of these mini blocks, so unfortunately, it's the chopping block for him. Yeah. Sorry, bud. Come again, though. Hey, yo. Chill, my dude. Yo. See this? He followed me all the way down from the forest just to spit on me. Oh, now he's enjoying the views. Very nice. Well, it ain't much. I just added a few little details to the area. I always underestimate how many things you really need, like how many items you need to kind of decorate stuff like this. Also, since I had left so many open spaces, it's kind of hard to add too many decorations, but we kind of added some little steps to make going down the pathways a little easier, and we added some light posts just kind of scattered throughout. I'm lacking quite a bit of materials, so I also ran out of iron to make lanterns. I can't even make an anvil for the blacksmith because I just don't have any. We just added a few benches in the area. This one's kind of overlooking the mountains. And we also added a little picnic bench here where the workers will sit and eat when they have the time. Added another wagon right here that's kind of empty. Well, never mind, it's not empty. We've just got a few different things. They're maybe unloading some things right here. More lampposts are just kind of scattered throughout the whole town area. And then I lured some pigs over because I figure even though it's a little town, when they probably don't focus on producing their own food most of the times, they, have to produce a little bit at least, so they're not constantly trading. And then we added a stone floor to the blacksmith, and we managed to trap some of the villagers into the buildings. Only 2 of them at the moment. This one's a fisherman for some reason, this one's a fisherman because of this barrel. But I'll have to knock him out into a blacksmith. Like I said, I don't have the anvil here, so kinda not a blacksmith. Honestly, I could use a blacksmith because of my diamond axe is about to break on me. But they also just announced the bundles were coming out soon, which I'm pretty excited for because as you can see, my inventory management is atrocious and I have yet to go into the nether, so I still don't have shulker boxes, don't have elytra. I don't even have netherite, so I'm getting to the point where I'm kind of ready to move on from this area. Maybe in the future I'll come back and kind of just add a few things when I'm not filming and just kind of connect this pathway into the forest here. But here are our beautiful Ents. I like to think that the fairies are tree huggers, and I thought a funny name to call these elite Entios would be tree thuggers, because they're tree huggers but they're thugs at the same time. So anytime the Entios need a job done, they'll send out their elite force to kind of get things done. So they would have these very strong and powerful fairies who can transform into these Ents, attack things. But as you can imagine, if every single fairy could turn into an Ent, that would be quite OP. So it's really only limited to the extremely powerful Entios. But they're pretty pissed off right here. But anyways, that's all the time we have for today. If you enjoyed the Ents, leave a comment and a like down below. It really does help out a small channel like mine. And we'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye for now.